I'm going to do a little quilt as you go on a serger. Great way to use up scraps, and I'm actually pairing it with a back that is a pre-quilted fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to always put right sides together. So I'm going to put my two fabrics right sides together and my two backs right sides together. This is also a great way to use up some extra batting. You just might want to have a little extra on the back. I'm going to lengthen the stitch length to about 3, so I am working with some extra layers here. What's nice is that it kind of evens up everything as I go, so it really is a nice finish. Once you've done one, you're going to go ahead and press open, or even finger press, the seams from each side. And see, because I've placed my quilted fabric on the back, I'm going to have a nice kind of back on the inside of this little pillow that I'm making here. All right, next one, I'm going to go ahead and do right sides together here and right sides together here. This is how we do our 1-hour serger quilt. It's much bigger scale, but does the exact same thing. Now, if you're getting some extra thicknesses, remember you can adjust the screw inside for heavier fabrics if for any reason your stitches are not forming as they should, or if you're getting any skip stitches. I am noticing my knife is a little bit far away. I'm going to make that a little narrower. Starting to get a little too much fabric trying to sneak into that little area. Oh yeah, much nicer at the end here. Then I'm just going to continue on pressing open and pressing open, and then I've got my pillow front ready for the back. I have a little project I'm working on that requires a rolled hem, but I wanted it to be a little bit more fuller, and I thought, why not have some fun with two variegated threads? I've got a variegated pink and a variegated teal, and I'm going to put them both through the upper looper. Yes, I said both. And that will kind of give that edge a little bit thicker, because I couldn't really find anything of those colors that would match my fabric. So I went ahead and said, well, I'll just make my own. So like a rolled hem, we're just going to clip the upper looper thread and tie these on. Now, since there's two, we can put one actually on the spool holder. There we go. I was pulling this off. And then I'll just set one on the table behind the serger here, and then we'll get those going. First thing I do, if you've done our rolled hem video, you can see how the machine is set up. I'm going to pull this out and then clip these threads. I'm going to go ahead and find my... Well, I better not pull too hard because the green's already cut here. But I'm going to go ahead and tie onto the green. So I'll bring our pink thread up and my teal thread from the table over the edge. Pull them together and then find that green thread. Then everything will just pull through as I knot it, just a nice little overhand knot. To make sure everything goes through, you can also take your tension down to 0, and that sometimes helps things go through a little bit smoother here. Make sure that gets pulled. There we go. And just slide one of my needle threads is out underneath here hiding, so I'm going to make sure that pulls through. There we go. Now we got two threads going through. I can see them going. Now with the tension, since normal is 4, but now we have two threads that are a little thicker, let's just back that off. Give them a little bit more room to run through the tensions. Now this is a rolled hem, so what we are going to do is go ahead and take out that stitch finger, and I'm going to tighten up that lower looper. I might have to tighten that up even more, but what I could also do is loosen the upper looper and make sure that those threads are going to pull around the edge to my liking. Now before I shorten the stitch length, what I'm going to do is just make sure that I like the look here, because I won't have to shorten it as much because now I have two threads going through. All right, we'll see how that looks. Ooh, I like the way that filled in. I shortened the stitch length a little bit so I can bring it closer together. And I think that's really going to add a fun edge to my little project here. This is going to be a long ruffle, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and just, I really don't want to cut anything off, but I'll just kind of start to stitch. Another thing that we'll have here, by the way, is this can make a fun cord. So you could put together 2 or even 3 different colors and just stitch without any fabric, just pulling to the back, and that will give you a decorative cord that you could use. You can make tassels, you can use it to match something, and instead of trying to find the perfect little cord, you can just do that. So I'm going to just zip down this edge here. Oh, I really like it now that it's on white. It really blends in to the project with these fun dots. The gathering attachment on a serger, one of my favorites because it makes life so easy. It's going to allow us to gather and onto a base fabric. So one layer is going to get gathered and the other one is not. To change your feet, go ahead and touch the button in the back and that will release your regular presser foot. And then just slide this underneath. You have kind of a little bar to kind of hook it underneath and then go ahead and lower your presser foot on. If it doesn't snap, push the button in the back and that will kind of open that claw and let it attach. Now, settings. You want to have your stitch length somewhere normal because this will be a construction seam. You don't want it too long or too short. Somewhere in the middle, 2.5 or 3. And then go ahead and increase your differential feed to 2. Tensions left at normal. So I've got 2 pieces of fabric. I'm going to go ahead and put the fabric I want gathered goes underneath everything. So I sometimes let that kind of get started. Maybe I'll take a few stitches. I'm going to lower the presser foot down so I have tension there. Let's get that in so the needles get started. Then take your base fabric, and that's going to be right sides down. So they're right sides together as they go into the attachment. This is going to go down the little chute and the guide. This one allows and keeps the fabric from touching that feed dog that's going to pull it all in. Once you take a stitch or two to get both of them connected with the serge, then I'm going to hold both fabrics separately. The top one's usually my right hand, and the bottom one is going to be kind of guided with my left hand. And so I just kind of keep them close together. That bottom layer is going to kind of want to jump around a little bit because it's being pulled in so quickly. You'll want to also do a test run and just make sure you like the ratio because once it's done, you can just cut off the extra, which is what makes it so easy. So I'm going to just go ahead and kind of get going here. I'm to the end already. Ooh, I like the ratio here. Okay, so you got your serged edge. You used to use a regular 4 thread seam. And then we've got that beautiful gathered edge. By the way, if you plan to do a rolled hem on here, do the rolled hem first and then gather it. And that will make it easy. Now, if you want, which is what I'm going to do, is I'm going to go ahead and do the gathering for our little pillow project we're working on. And I'm going to just put the piece completely under the whole unit. So we're kind of not using half of it, just using the first one. And then just go ahead and stitch. Try not to cut too much off and try not to pull too much on your fabric. And that's going to gather it up nicely. Miles of gathering done at the speed of a bullet. Do you know you can serge a zipper onto fabric? Let me show you a couple tricks. First off, you want a zipper that's longer than your fabric you're stitching. So what I've done is I've actually already stitched one side here just to make sure I knew where to guide it. And I'm going to show you the little trick. Since you have 2 needles, what you want them to do is kind of go right by or on top of that little middle ridge down the zipper. So it's halfway between the edge and the teeth. So you don't actually catch them while you're serging. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do right sides together. And I'm going to just make sure that my edges here are lined up. And then if you want to cut off a little bit, you can just kind of bring that in just a little bit from your fabric. What I'm going to do is just lift up the foot. Remember, we have a much longer zipper, so we can use that first part as a little bit of a runway. Now, you do want to sit right in front. That's why I've kind of got the serger angled more towards me so I can actually see what I'm doing. I'm going to use kind of this little bar here, the part that's on the foot, because that is even with the left needle if I'm looking right down there. That way I can keep that to the right of the zipper teeth. Now also look where these fingers are. I'm kind of holding the fabric down, this seam, everything's kind of riding at an angle. So this foot wants to kind of push it out to the side. So all I'm doing is just making sure that stays nice and flat and even. I've got the stitch length a little bit longer because I'm going through kind of a quilted fabric plus the zipper, plus we're on top of everything here. So we're just going to go right on down. And then make sure, before you push it all the way to the side, make sure the needles have actually cleared the edge of the fabric before you get it going too much of an angle. There we go. All right, what I always like to do is then just test and make sure that that is zipping all the way through. Now, if you want, you could go to your sewing machine and quick top stitch this down and make it be nice and flat. We'll see if I actually do that. I might just serge it in. Just remember, when you actually are serging it into your project, you just zip your zipper down, and so when you sew it, it catches all along that side. I've trimmed down the square to make it nice and even, as well as the back. And now, of course, once you cut off that zipper in, don't play with that. Sometimes I'll even stick a little pin in there just to remind me, don't move that, because it'll come right off the end. But what we need to do is next sandwich the ruffle in place, and then we'll put this on top, pin it, and then just go around with the 4th thread, and then we'll use the zipper opening to turn the pillow right side out. Now, normally I sometimes take, and with my ruffle, I'll kind of curve this end, but since I didn't, I'm going to just kind of lay this down so it kind of will hide the rolled hem into the edge, and we'll just start pinning it. When you pin, right now I'm going to pin so that I can see my pins going perpendicular. When you serge, it's best that you pin parallel to the edge, and that way if you can't find a pin and it slips by you, it doesn't go through the knife. Now, since this was 2 lengths of ruffle, where the seam is, that's going to be my center point at the top here. And then we're just going to kind of find that quarter part. Here we go. Just kind of find it and then put that in the center of this side. The reason for this is because what we want to do is ease any extra fullness into the corner. See how much bigger this is? Well, that's perfect, because what I want to do is I want to kind of gather that up. We can put a little bit more along the edge as I work my way to the corner from both sides. And if you have extra than you thought you were going to, just kind of push it in, ease it in, but leave a nice kind of little poof of ruffle right for that corner. And what I want to do is just kind of tuck it so nothing gets caught when I go around those edges. I don't want any of this little edge to get there. So just kind of work it so the middle part is kind of comes around. There we go. And then I'm just going to pin that. And I'll pin it so this part here kind of stays in place and doesn't move around. And then I'm going to just continue on with the other corners, and then what we'll do is take that other end and do a little overlap. So they'll overlap at the bottom of the pillow, and none of the edges of the rolled hem will be left over and sticking out. So I'm going to just go ahead and pin up the rest. Next, take your back and put it right side down along the edges. You can take some of these pins and move them to go through all the layers, or just add some extras all the way around. Make sure you leave the ones that were holding that poof in the corner in place. Those really need to stay in. And here's where we're going to cut off nice and even and have our rolled hem be perfect. Okay, now we're going to just stitch all the way around. If you can push your zipper a little bit together, that will kind of hold it. If it separates, it's no big deal. Your seam will hold that once it's actually serged. Just make sure to pull out your pins as you go. Keep an eye on them so nobody gets accidentally in there and cut off. You do want to have the stitch length a little longer, and then that way it'll go through a little easier. And make sure your cutting blade is as to the lowest number as possible. Once you're ready to turn it right side out, reach in, and this pin is going to release the zipper so I can open that all up. Now remember, we put the pins in the corners, so when you're reaching in, I would reach for those pins first so you don't get your fingers kind of held up on those pins. Oh, where did that one go? Oh well, hopefully I find that one. There we go. There we go. Okay, so we're ready to turn that right side out. And you can just give your corners a little tug and that will pull the bulk of it to be nice and perfect. Oh, how cute. So ready for spring. I can tell I caught one little extra corner here. You'll see because it's kind of a halfway area. So what I'm going to do is release those couple stitches, pull it, and then go back in and reserge just a little bit of that side. Oh, how fun is that? And you too can make this pillow on your serger without the use of a sewing machine.